Welcome to the Jewelry Resellers Podcast, your go-to source for all things shiny, sparkly, and of course, profitable. I'm your host, Desiree, and I'll be your guide on this dazzling journey through the world of reselling jewelry. We'll be diving deep into the art and science of reselling, uncovering valuable tips, insider secrets, and sharing stories from successful jewelry resellers. We'll explore market trends, industry news, and even discuss how to find those hidden gems just waiting to be discovered in thrift stores, estate sales, and beyond. So if you're dreaming of turning your hobby into a hustle, or if you're a seasoned pro looking to stay at the top of your jewelry reselling game, join me each week for insights, stories, and more on the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. I'm your host, Desiree, and today I think this is going to be a really informative episode because I'm answering a question I got, and someone wanted to know all about Facebook groups. And I thought about it and I said, that would be a great topic for an entire episode. And I think that this is going to be helpful because so many of us, when we're trying to do research and we're trying to build our knowledge as it relates to jewelry, sometimes it's a very lonely process, first of all, but sometimes you're just stuck and you have no idea what you have, what you're looking at, or what you should be looking at. And so today I'm going to talk about the best Facebook groups that all jewelry resellers should know about or should be familiar with, because this will be huge as it relates to you learning about jewelry. This is how I have learned so much, and I have connected with other people who are just as passionate or just as excited about jewelry. And some of these groups that I'm going to share with you today, some of them are brand or designer specific. Some of them are kind of open to whatever kind of jewelry. Some of them are just for vintage or modern jewelry, or maybe a mixture of whatever. So I have 21 Facebook groups that I'm going to share with you. And if you are listening to this while you are walking or working out or driving or whatever, don't worry, because I will have links to each of these groups in the show notes. So all you'll have to do is click on it and it will take you directly to that group on Facebook. So I am going to be focusing on Facebook today just because I think that is probably the best place and probably the place that has the most diversity as it relates to these types of educational or informational groups to really build your knowledge as it relates to jewelry. So I'm going to read off the list, and they're not in any particular order. And yes, I am a member of all of these groups plus more. I mean, I'm probably in, and this is not an exaggeration, at least 100 groups that have to do with some type of jewelry. But these are the ones that I tend to visit the most often and the ones that I think have been the most helpful for me. So I want to share them with you because if you are on Facebook, I do recommend that you take advantage of joining some of these groups. All the ones I'm going to talk about today are free. There are some paid groups out there, but you can find just as much information, if not more, in these free Facebook groups. And there's a lot of experts and people who are very knowledgeable about jewelry in these groups. And so just by being in the group, you have direct access to these people who are so knowledgeable and who are so willing to share what they know about jewelry. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The first group I want to mention is called Jewelry Hallmark and Maker's Mark Identification. And I'm going to read the little group description because that'll give us an idea of what each group is about. And this group says that feel free to ask questions about any piece of jewelry you have and to answer any questions that you may know the answer to. Be respectful, no spam. So this is a general group that will help you identify markings, branding, stamps, maker's mark, maker's marks on any type of jewelry. They don't have any stipulations or rules about how old the jewelry has to be, whether it's vintage, antique, or whatever. So it's a really helpful group to just kind of poke around, and you will learn stuff just by scrolling through. Okay, so that's the very first group I want to share. It's called Jewelry, Hallmark, and Maker's Mark Identification. All right, so the next group we are going to talk about, and this is the one led by my friend Rachel, and her group is called Lilyworks, Vintage to Modern Jewelry for Reselling. That's Lilyworks, Vintage to Modern Jewelry for Reselling. And her group description is, welcome to our official jewelry reselling Facebook group. I get a lot of questions in regards to identifying and reselling jewelry. There are a lot of jewelry resellers and collectors here that can probably answer questions better than I can. We can collaborate as a community here and help each other out. Rachel. Okay, so if you are not familiar with Rachel, she has a very robust community and she is very active in the group. And there is a lot of beautiful pictures of jewelry in her group and a lot of helpful people. Now, I am one of the admins in this group. So if you join this group, more than likely I will see you and probably say hello. So that is Lilyworks Vintage to Modern Jewelry for Reselling. All right, group number 3 is All Jewelry Maker's Mark Identification. And this is a public group. Now, some of the groups are private, a lot of them are public, and it's okay because, you can find the answers or you can post questions either way. I think the public groups are just more searchable, and so that's probably why the people who run the groups make them public. But the description for this group is a group to identify the makers of any type of jewelry with no restrictions on age. So this includes modern, vintage, or antique jewelry. And in parentheses, they say anything is acceptable. So this is a great group. If you don't even know anything about the piece that you have, you can come here, post a picture, maybe post a picture of the branding or the stamp or the maker's mark, and people will do their best to help you identify it. The description goes on to say, please invite your friends so we can make this an active and knowledgeable group. And please, at this time, no sale posts. If you are interested in something posted, message the person who posted privately and comment letting them know. So that's another thing you have to pay attention to. A lot of these groups do not allow you to post jewelry pieces or jewelry items or accessories for sale unless they are specific for sale groups. Okay, so just make sure you pay attention to the rules because I don't want you getting, kicked out because you didn't know. All right, so this group again is called All Jewelry Maker's Mark Identification. All right, number 4. Now, this is one of my favorite groups. I love to hang out here, and this is the Bakelite and Other Early Plastics group. Yes, there is an entire Facebook group dedicated to Bakelite and other types of plastics. And the description for this one is a place to discuss, share, and talk about, buy or sell vintage jewelry, Bakelite, celluloid, or lucite, dice, pins, brooches, jewelry, and games. So anything made with some of these older plastics is acceptable to be posted in this group. And I just love scrolling through this group because there are some fascinating and fun and beautiful pieces of jewelry. And not everything is jewelry that gets posted in here. But if you are a fan of Bakelite like I am, I think you would really enjoy this group. And again, it's called Bakelite and Other Early Plastics. All right, the second Bakelite group that I also enjoy hanging out in is called Bakelite, Celluloid, and Plastics Buy and Sell Group. And again, this is another Bakelite group, and you can buy and sell in this group, and you won't only see jewelry in here. You'll see a lot of other things that are fun and interesting. You'll see handbags, you will see kitchen utensils, and all kinds of stuff. So again, this one is called Bakelite, Celluloid, and Plastics Buy and Sell Group. All right, the next one I want to share is called Trifari Jewelry Collectors. Excuse me. Now, you know that Trifari is one of my favorite jewelry brands. I have been collecting Trifari for years. I have bought and sold probably hundreds of pieces of all price ranges at this point in my jewelry reselling career. But of course, you can never know too much about this group. And this is a really good place to learn about Trifari, learn about the designs and the styles that are out there. And this is a group that does have a lot of collectors. So you will see people sharing Trifari pieces from their own personal collection as well. So again, this is called Trifari Jewelry Collectors Group. All right, next up is a vintage jewelry identification collective group. It's called Vintage Jewelry Identification Collective. All right, this is a place to help identify vintage jewelry. We do not identify stones, nor do we discuss value. So again, if you need help trying to identify a piece of jewelry that you know nothing about, this group would be an excellent place for you to start. Okay, and it is called Vintage Jewelry Identification Collective. And remember, if you are listening to this, don't worry. I will have links to every single one of these groups that I'm sharing with you today in the show notes. Okay. And you can access that on jewelryresellerspodcast.com. All right. The next group I want to share with you is called Vintage Jewelry Collectors Buy, Sell, Identify. This is a group for vintage jewelry identification as well as buy and sell. Okay, so this group is specific for vintage jewelry only. So remember, that is jewelry that is at least 20 to 25 years old. Okay, so that's vintage jewelry collectors buy, sell, identify. All right, the next group, this one is a pretty popular one. I think many of us already know this one. This is Texas Gals Jewelry Lovers. Okay, Texas Gals Jewelry Lovers, a Facebook group for collectors, resellers, and enthusiasts of vintage, antique, and modern jewelry. Okay, so this one, it looks like you can pretty much ask about any type of jewelry. And this is a very helpful group. I have been a member for years now, and I have learned so much in this group, by itself. I think if you only want to join one group, this probably would be the one I would recommend. However, if you like some of the more, I guess, niche specific groups like, the Bakelite or Trifari or whatever, then you could join those too. But if you just want one general group that's not too big, Texas Gals Jewelry Lovers Group would be an excellent one for you to consider. All right, next up is, and this is for those of you who do not want to sell, you just want to appreciate beautiful jewelry. And this group is called Vintage Jewelry Appreciation, No Sales. Okay, so this is a place for you to show off your own vintage estate or antique jewelry or something you truly covet or appreciate. No sales are allowed at all. All right, so this is Vintage Jewelry Appreciation, No Sales. The next group I want to share with you is Vintage Monet Jewelry. Vintage Monet Jewelry, information, buying, and selling. So another brand that I really love is Monet. And this is a place for you to come and learn about Monet as well as to see some beautiful, beautiful pieces. The description of this group is, I created this page as a place to sell and purchase vintage Monet jewelry. I was a sales rep for this jeweler from 1979 to 1989. If you are interested in vintage Monet jewelry or Monet catalogs and advertising items, this is the group for you. All right, and they also say anything not Monet related will be automatically removed. Okay, so if you are interested in Monet and everything and anything having to do with Monet, this is a great group for you to join. All right, next up is another one of my favorites because I love Sarah Coventry. And this group is called Sarah Coventry and Emmons Jewelry Identification and History. So Sarah Coventry and Emmons Jewelry Identification and History page is open for everyone interested in collecting or needing help identifying and sharing memories about this vintage line of costume jewelry. We also have a sister group for only buying and selling. Now, this is a really fun group because I have had, again, probably hundreds of Sarah Coventry pieces throughout my jewelry lifetime. I used to collect it before I became a jewelry reseller. So I have had so many pieces, and I still have quite a few. I've sold quite a few as well, but I have learned so much about Sarah Coventry pieces just from this group. All right, another group which I think is very helpful, and that is the Juliana Jewelry Book Group. Now, I am going to have the owner of this group on the podcast. I think she said she's going to be available this summer. But if you are interested in Juliana jewelry, the lady who runs this group has actually written a book about Juliana jewelry. And so the book is not published, I don't think, not yet. And so I think she has it available in ebook format. But if you come to this group and if you think you have Juliana jewelry pieces, this is a great group for you to see if you do, or to learn about some of the ways to identify Juliana jewelry. So this is a really good group to be a part of. And like I said, I have learned a ton, and I'm still learning just by hanging out in this group. The ladies in this group are so knowledgeable, and they really know their stuff. So I think it's a really good group to join. All right, the next group I want to share is called Native American and Vintage Silver Jewelry. Let's see. Now my link is not working, and so I'm not quite sure. But anyway, if you are looking to learn about how to identify Native American and vintage silver jewelry, this would be a very good group for you. I'm not sure if they have certain requirements, and maybe that's why I can't access the group, because I just found it this morning, but now my link is not working. So I'm not sure. I will link it anyway in case you are interested, but it's a great way to learn about Native American and vintage silver jewelry. All right, next up, I do want to share with you this group, which is called Vintage and Antique Costume Jewelry. Identify, study, and share. So this is a place where you can learn about vintage or antique jewelry. And it's also a good place for you to share some things that you may have questions about, or maybe, you're learning and you don't understand something about a particular piece. It looks like this is a really good group to be a part of. And I'm looking at some of the photos here. They are just absolutely beautiful. This is kind of a large group. It's got 44,000 members as of today. But don't worry about some of these larger groups. I think sometimes people get a little overwhelmed when there's so many members. But when there are a lot of members in the group, it's actually good, because then you have more people that could possibly know the answers to the questions that you're asking. So again, this is Vintage and Antique Costume Jewelry. Identify, study, and share. All right, next up. Oh, this is a really good group. Now, this is called Restore, Repair, Repurpose Vintage Costume Jewelry. If you make repairs, or if one of your pieces is missing a stone, or maybe the clasp is broken or damaged or whatever, you definitely want to be a part of this group, because if you're going to be doing your own repairs, there are people in here who are experts and knowledgeable about what works and what doesn't as it relates to repairing or restoring jewelry. Now, in this group, I have learned how to replace stones and, some of the things that you need in order to do that. So, and I've learned too, just by reading some of the other posts, and you will see some projects that people do and how they restore pieces and they make them look like new. And there's also a lot of discussion too about, when you restore a piece, does it add to the value or does it devalue the piece? So that's something that you want to consider. But if you just need to learn how to make minor repairs, I do recommend this group. And again, that is called Restore, Repair, Repurpose Vintage Costume Jewelry. All right, next up is a group called Costume Jewelry Collectors Vintage to Now. All right, it's called Costume Jewelry Collectors Vintage to Now. This is a place to share your collection and get information on costume jewelry and post jewelry for sale from vintage to new. So this is a group that does allow you to buy and sell. And again, sometimes you just scroll through these groups and you will learn a lot just by looking at the pieces. It's a lot of fun, if you ever have some free time. Maybe you don't have anything that you're doing. Maybe you're not busy, but these groups are a lot of fun to just scroll through and look at some of these gorgeous, gorgeous pieces of jewelry. All right, so this one again is called Costume Jewelry Collectors Vintage to Now. All right, the next group is Antique and Vintage Jewelry Detectives, Identification, Discussion, and Study. All right, again, that's called Antique and Vintage Jewelry Detectives, Identification, Discussion, and Study. So this is a study group for antique and vintage jewelry enthusiasts. The purpose of the group is to help each other solve jewelry mysteries, share new additions to our collections, post research resources, and generally talk about anything related to vintage jewelry. Please feel free to join us and be sure to read the pinned posts for the rules and guidelines. So you can see if you have any type of burning questions as it relates to jewelry, this would be an excellent group for you to post those questions. And it looks like some of these people, they know the history and the backstory of certain types of jewelry. So again, this is going to be another fantastic learning opportunity as it relates to some of your jewelry. Okay, and I really like the name, Antique and Vintage Jewelry Detectives, Identification, Discussion, and Study. All right. Now, this is a fun group because this is more about an event, I guess, but this is the Tucson Gem, Mineral, and Jewelry Show. Now, if you are interested in crystals, gemstones, semi-precious stones, you should be very familiar with the Tucson Gem, Mineral, and Jewelry Show. And the show does happen several times throughout the year, and I think it's obviously the big one is in Tucson, but I think they have other smaller shows throughout. I know in the United States, I don't know if some of the shows are international as well. But if you are attending the show, this would be a great group for you to join just so you can connect with other people. Also, some vendors are in this group, so maybe if you have questions about something, you'd be able to reach out and connect with them in this group as well. So the description says, welcome to the Tucson Gem Show Connect group, your go-to destination for staying connected with the gem industry all year round. Our vibrant community is dedicated to bringing together gem enthusiasts, mineral collectors, industry professionals, and experts, even after the excitement of the Tucson Gem Show has passed. All right, so again, I love this group. I love looking at the pictures. They are absolutely stunning. And again, you're going to learn so much just by being in this group. And if you are attending the show, you definitely want to be in here just so you can, learn what's going on, or maybe there's going to be some things that you want to make sure you don't miss. Okay, so again, this is called the Tucson Gem, Mineral, and Jewelry Show group. All right, and the last Facebook group I want to share with you today is the Coro Costume Jewelry group. Now, I love Coro jewelry, just like I like Trifari, Monet, all of those brands, but Coro is one of my favorites. I have sold quite a few pieces of Coro jewelry throughout the years, and this is a group specifically dedicated to Coro and Coro craft jewelry. Okay, let's see. Lots of pictures here and lots of people showing off their collections or beautiful pieces that maybe they are selling or maybe they just bought. I don't know if this is... No. Okay, so I just read the description. No sales or selling is allowed, and all non-Coro related posts will be deleted. Okay, so this is a group specific to Coro costume jewelry, and that's the name of the group, Coro Costume Jewelry. All right, so those are the Facebook groups that I recommend, at least, to get you started. I'm sure you probably have maybe your own Facebook groups that you really love and you spend a lot of time in. But this is, like I said, going to be a fantastic resource for you to learn about jewelry, to ask questions, because sometimes doing what we do can be very lonely, and sometimes you feel a little isolated because maybe no one in your real life likes jewelry, or maybe nobody understands exactly what you're doing or why you're doing it or even how you're doing it. Okay, so these groups are an excellent way to not only get your questions answered, but also to make friends and to meet other people who have the same interests and passion as you do. So let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Do you think Facebook groups are a great way to learn about jewelry? I most certainly do. If there are other Facebook groups that you recommend that I did not mention, please leave them in the comments. I would love to know because, like I said, I'm a member of probably at least 100 groups, and 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 more definitely can't hurt. All right, so that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. My contact information is on the website, and that's jewelryresellerspodcast.com. Or you can, like I said, leave me a comment, and I'll make sure to get back to you as quickly as I can. All right, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'll check in with you again really soon.